You saved me 17 years ago, and today I've come to return the favor, said the millionaire. Marcus Bennett wiped his oily hands on an old rag as he listened to the sound of expensive heels echoing across the cement floor of the auto repair shop. At 42, he never imagined that day would change his life forever. The elegant woman stopped in front of him, her blue eyes shining with a mix of nervousness and determination. She wore an impeccable white suit that contrasted with the dirty, noisy environment of the shop. "You saved me 17 years ago, and today I've come to return the favor," she said with a firm voice, yet laden with emotion. Marcus looked up, confused, wiping his hands on his grease-stained overalls. He didn't recognize this sophisticated woman who seemed to have stepped out of the pages of a business magazine. "I'm sorry, Ma'am, but I think you've got the wrong person," he replied, bending back down toward the car engine he was fixing. "My name is Elizabeth Hayes. You saved me from a terrible accident when I was 16, she insisted, moving closer. Marcus shook his head, genuinely confused. He didn't remember saving anyone, much less a rich girl like this woman appeared to have been. "Look, Mrs. Elizabeth, I really don't know what you're talking about. You must be confusing me with someone else." Elizabeth took a deep breath, as if she had expected this reaction. From the pocket of her white blazer, she pulled out an old yellowed photograph. She stepped closer again and handed the image to him. "Do you recognize this face?" Marcus took the photo with his still dirty hands and froze. In the image, faded by time, he saw a 16-year-old boy holding an injured girl in his arms. The background showed car wreckage and smoke. He immediately recognized his own young face, but the memory remained blocked. I don't remember this," he murmured, handing the photo back. "You carried me for 2 kilometers to the nearest hospital. The doctor said if you had taken 5 more minutes, I would have died." Elizabeth's voice trembled slightly as she spoke these words. Marcus watched her carefully for the first time, noticing small, almost imperceptible scars on her forehead, hidden by subtle makeup. "I investigated your life for months through a private detective," she continued. "I know you're about to lose this shop because of debt. I know you work 16 hours a day to support your sister Rachel, who needs special care." Marcus's expression changed immediately. Confusion gave way to irritation. "A private detective? Who do you think you are to investigate my life?" Elizabeth remained calm in the face of his reaction. "Someone who owes you her life." Marcus felt the blood rush to his head. No one had the right to investigate his private life, no matter the reason. "Look here, Mrs. Elizabeth. I don't know what story you've made up in your head, but I want you to leave my shop right now." "Marcus, please listen to me." "No, you have no right to hire a detective to investigate my life. That's an invasion of privacy." Elizabeth took a deep breath and pulled a thick envelope from the inside pocket of her blazer. "This envelope contains enough money to pay off all your debts and still have plenty left for you to completely renovate the shop." Marcus looked at the envelope as if it were a poisonous snake. "I don't want your money. I don't accept charity." "It's not charity, Marcus. It's justice." "Justice? You show up out of nowhere, make up a crazy story about me saving you 17 years ago, have my life investigated and still want to give me money? That's not justice, it's madness." Marcus forcefully tossed the envelope back into her hands. "I don't need your pity, Mrs. Elizabeth. You can keep your money and find some other poor soul to bankroll." Elizabeth held the envelope but didn't put it away. "Marcus, you saved my life when I was just a teenager. You didn't know me, you owed me nothing, but you risked your own safety to help me. Today I have a successful company, a prosperous life, all because you gave me a second chance. I don't remember any of that, so it didn't happen. You have the wrong person. The accident was on the road connecting Austin to Round Rock at kilometer 47. It was a Sunday morning. You were coming back from your grandmother's house. My father had been drinking and lost control of the car. You heard the crash from the main road and ran to help." The specific details made Marcus hesitate for a moment, but he shook his head again. "I'm sorry, but I don't remember any of that. And even if it were true, I don't want anything in return. You can leave." Elizabeth put the envelope away but didn't move. "I'll come back tomorrow." "It's no use. My answer will be the same. We'll see." After Elizabeth left, Marcus was restless for the rest of the day. The photo stayed in his mind, as did the details she had mentioned. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember the supposed accident. That night at home, he told everything to Rachel, his younger sister. At 35, Rachel had partial paralysis in her legs since birth and relied on Marcus for almost everything. "Marcus, you've always had memory problems when it comes to traumatic situations," said Rachel, while preparing dinner in her wheelchair. "Remember when you saved that boy from drowning in the river and then spent weeks denying it happened?" Marcus stopped eating. "That was different. I just didn't want to fuss." "Or when you helped Mrs. Constance when her house caught fire. You carried her and her 3 grandchildren out, but then you got nervous every time someone talked about it." Marcus had never thought of it that way. Rachel was right. He really had a hard time dealing with situations where he felt responsible for other people's safety. "Even so, Rachel, that woman investigated our lives. That's not normal. Maybe she just wants to return a favor. Have you thought about that? She definitely wants something. Rich women don't go around handing out money out of kindness." The next morning, Marcus arrived early at the shop hoping for a normal workday. But Elizabeth was there, sitting on a makeshift wooden bench, drinking coffee from a disposable cup. "Good morning, Marcus. I said yesterday I didn't want to see you here again, and I said I'd be back." Elizabeth stood up and approached him. Today she wore a simpler blue dress, but still elegant. "I brought more evidence of what happened that day." She handed him a newspaper clipping yellowed with time. The headline read, "Teenager saves young woman's life in highway accident." Marcus read the article in silence. The text described exactly what Elizabeth had told him. A 16-year-old boy had rescued a girl from the wreckage of a car that caught fire minutes later. The text didn't mention names, only initials. This still doesn't prove anything. It could be anyone. "Marcus, please, why would I make up a story like that?" "I don't know, maybe you have some mental problem." Elizabeth laughed humorlessly. "A mental problem? I run a company with over 200 employees. Do you really think I'd have gotten where I am if I had mental problems?" Marcus folded the clipping and handed it back to her. "Look, Mrs. Elizabeth, even if this story is true, I don't want your money. I don't want to owe anything to anyone. But you won't owe me anything. It would be me paying a debt I owe you. A debt I don't even know exists." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Elizabeth sighed and sat back down on the makeshift bench. "Can I stay here while you work?" "I won't be a bother." "Why?" "Because I want to understand who you've become. I want to know the man who saved my life." Marcus hesitated. He didn't know why, but he felt a strange curiosity about this woman. "As long as you don't keep offering me money." "I won't offer anything else, at least for today." For the first few hours, Elizabeth just watched Marcus work. He noticed she paid attention to every detail, how he treated customers, his patience in explaining car problems, his dedication to doing each job perfectly. Around noon, a customer arrived complaining that another mechanic had overcharged for a shoddy repair. Marcus examined the car and found the problem was simple, but the other guy had replaced unnecessary parts. "I won't charge anything to fix this," Marcus told the customer. "You've already been wronged once." Elizabeth watched the scene with growing interest. When the customer left, she commented, "Did you do that out of kindness or as a business strategy?" "What do you mean?" "You didn't charge the customer hoping he'd return and refer others, or did you genuinely not want to harm him further?" Marcus stopped working and looked at her. "What kind of question is that?" "An honest one. The man had already been cheated. Why would I want to harm him more?" Elizabeth smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. "That's exactly the answer I hoped to hear. And why is that important? Because it confirms I chose the right person to repay the favor." Marcus felt a strange discomfort. He didn't like being analyzed like an interesting specimen. "Mrs. Elizabeth, you're making me uncomfortable with these questions. I'm sorry, it's just that I've been looking for you for so long. I'm still processing having found you." "Looking for me? For how long?" Elizabeth hesitated before answering. 17 years. Marcus dropped the wrench he was holding. 17 years. Since the day of the accident, I tried to find out who you were. My parents moved to New York soon after, and I lost any lead. I only managed to save enough to hire a private detective last year. You spent 17 years looking for a guy you weren't even sure existed. I am absolutely certain you exist, and I am absolutely certain it was you who saved me." Marcus felt dizzy. The idea that someone had spent nearly 2 decades searching for him was unsettling. Why? Why was it so important? Elizabeth stood up and walked to the entrance of the shop, looking out at the busy street. "Because that day completely changed the course of my life. After the accident, I started to value each day, every opportunity. I worked tirelessly in my studies, graduated in business administration, opened my first company at 23. Today, I have one of the largest logistics companies in the interior of New York. And what does that have to do with me? Everything. Every achievement of mine was motivated by the second chance you gave me, but also by the guilt of never having thanked you properly." Marcus didn't know what to say. Elizabeth's explanation sounded sincere, but it still felt too unreal. "What's the name of your company?" "Hayes Logistics. Maybe you've seen our trucks around town." Marcus had indeed seen them. White and blue trucks with the Hayes Logistics logo were common on the streets of Austin. He never imagined he'd meet the owner of the company. "You really are rich." "I am prosperous, yes. And I want to share that prosperity with the person who made it all possible. But I didn't do anything beyond what any decent person would do. How many decent people passed by the accident site before you and didn't stop to help?" Marcus had no answer for that. "Besides," Elizabeth continued, "you didn't just help me. You risked your own life. The car caught fire less than 5 minutes after you pulled me out." The image of a burning car appeared vaguely in Marcus's mind, but vanished before he could focus on it. "I need to go," he said abruptly. "I have to pick up my sister from physical therapy." "May I meet your sister?" "Why?" "Because she's important to you. And you're important to me." Marcus hesitated. On one hand, he didn't want to involve Rachel in that confusing situation. On the other, he was curious about how Rachel would react to Elizabeth. "She does physical therapy at the clinic on Jefferson Street. If you want, you can come with me." During the trip to the clinic, Elizabeth asked questions about Rachel. Marcus explained about his sister's partial paralysis and how he had taken on the responsibility of caring for her after their parents died in a car accident when he was 18. "You were only 18 and took on the responsibility of caring for a sister with special needs. It was what had to be done. Most young people would have put their sister in an institution. Most young people don't love their sisters like I love Rachel." Elizabeth was silent for a few minutes. "Now I understand why you saved me that day. Saving people is part of who you are." At the clinic, Rachel came out of her physical therapy session smiling. When she saw Marcus accompanied by an elegant woman, her face lit up with curiosity. "Rachel, this is Elizabeth, the woman I told you about yesterday." "The rich woman who thinks you saved her?" asked Rachel bluntly. Elizabeth laughed at Rachel's frankness. "Exactly that. Pleasure to meet you, Rachel." "Pleasure. Beto said you investigated our life. Is it true?" "It's true, and I apologize for the invasion of privacy, but I needed to be sure I had found the right person." Rachel studied Elizabeth carefully while Marcus helped her transfer from the wheelchair to the car. "You seem sincere," Rachel said finally, "but my brother is stubborn. If he doesn't want to accept your help, you'll have to be very convincing." "I'm trying to be." "Or very patient." "I'm trying that too." On the way back home, Rachel asked Elizabeth several questions about her company and her personal life. Marcus noticed his sister was genuinely interested and not just being polite. "Elizabeth, do you have family? Husband, children?" asked Rachel. "No, I never married, and I don't have children." "Why?" "Rachel," Marcus scolded. "It's okay," said Elizabeth. "It's a fair question. I think I've always been so focused on work that I never prioritized personal relationships." "Don't you feel lonely?" Elizabeth thought for a moment before answering. "Sometimes, especially in recent years. Professional success fills many things, but it doesn't fill everything." Marcus looked in the rearview mirror and saw a look of melancholy on Elizabeth's face that she was trying to hide. When they arrived home, Rachel insisted that Elizabeth come in for coffee. Marcus tried to protest, but Rachel was already inviting Elizabeth for dinner too. The siblings' house was simple but cozy. Elizabeth noticed everything was adapted to facilitate Rachel's mobility. Ramps, handrails, furniture at the appropriate height. Marcus did all these adaptations himself, Rachel commented, noticing Elizabeth's interest. You did all this yourself? With help from some friends, replied Marcus, embarrassed by the attention. It was no big deal. Of course it was, insisted Rachel. He works all day at the shop and still finds time to take care of me and the house. Elizabeth watched Marcus preparing dinner with practical, efficient movements. It was clear those tasks had been part of his routine for a long time. Marcus, can I ask a personal question? You can ask. I can't guarantee I'll answer. Have you never thought about getting married, having your own family? Marcus stopped chopping the vegetables. What for? I already have a family. But what about your own children, your own wife? Rachel is my priority, she always has been. Marcus, you know you don't have to give up your life for my sake, Rachel interjected. I'm not giving up anything. I'm choosing what's important to me. Elizabeth realized this was a conversation the siblings had had many times before. Marcus, have you ever thought you might be able to take better care of Rachel if you had more financial resources? Here we go again, Marcus sighed. I'm not talking about charity. I'm talking about a business partnership. What kind of partnership? Elizabeth took a deep breath as if preparing to make an important proposal. My company needs a reliable auto shop to maintain our truck fleet. It's over 50 vehicles that need constant maintenance. Right now we pay a fortune to a shop in New York. Marcus stopped cooking completely. You're making this up on the spot. I'm not making up anything. I can show you the contracts and the amounts we pay monthly. And what would my part be in this partnership? You would become the official mechanic for Hayes Logistics. I would invest in expanding your shop, buy new equipment, hire more staff. You would keep 60% of the profits. Marcus and Rachel exchanged a look. The offer was too tempting to be real. Why 60%? If you're investing the money, you should take the larger share. Because the work will be yours, and because you deserve it. Deserve it? Why? For saving me 17 years ago. Marcus shook his head. I won't accept favors based on something I don't even remember doing. Then accept it based on your professional competence. I spent the day watching you work. You're honest, careful, treat customers well. You're exactly the type of person I want as a partner. Rachel touched her brother's arm. Marcus, at least consider the offer. Rachel, you don't understand. If I accept this, I'll be indebted to her for the rest of my life. You won't owe anything, Elizabeth insisted. It would be a legitimate business. I need a reliable shop. You need more clients. It's a win-win situation. Marcus served dinner in silence, clearly disturbed by the proposal. During the meal, Elizabeth avoided talking business and focused on getting to know the siblings better. She learned that Marcus had dropped out of school to work after their parents' bankruptcy, that Rachel had gotten an accounting degree through a distance learning course, but couldn't get a job because of her physical disability, that the two supported each other in a way she had never seen before. You are a very close family, Elizabeth commented. It's all we have, Marcus replied. You have something many rich families I know don't have, unconditional love for each other. Rachel smiled. Marcus has always been too protective. Ever since we were little, he thought he had to take care of everyone. How so? In school, he always defended the younger kids from bullies. Once he came home with a black eye because he'd defended a boy he barely knew. Marcus turned red. Rachel. And when our parents died, he was 17 and already working to help at home. He could have put me in an institution and gone on with his life, but he chose to take on the responsibility. Elizabeth watched Marcus with growing interest. Each story confirmed her impression that he had a naturally protective character. Marcus, can I ask one more personal question? You're already asking so many. Do you remember other times when you helped people in dangerous situations? Marcus hesitated. Why do you want to know? Because I'm trying to understand if saving people is a pattern in your life or if it was an isolated act. Rachel answered for him. It's a pattern. My brother can't see someone in trouble and just stand by. Rachel, stop it. It's true, Marcus. Remember the fire at Mrs. Constance's house, the boy in the river, that fight at the bakery where you stepped in to protect the owner? Marcus grew increasingly uncomfortable with the stories Rachel was telling. Enough, Rachel. Elizabeth noticed his discomfort. Why do these stories bother you? Because they're nothing special. Anyone would have done the same thing. That's not true, said Elizabeth softly. Most people prefer not to get involved. Then most people are wrong. Elizabeth smiled. Exactly. And that's why people like you are special. Marcus stood up from the table abruptly. I'm not special. I'm just an ordinary person trying to live right. Marcus, ordinary people don't risk their own lives to save strangers. And special people don't end up poor fixing cars on the outskirts of town. Elizabeth stood up as well. Marcus, can I tell you something about my life? If you want. After the accident, I spent 3 months in the hospital. During that time, I had time to think about what really mattered in life. I realized there were people like you who made a difference in the world without expecting recognition, and people like me who just existed without contributing to anything. You do contribute. You have a company, you give people jobs. That came later. At that moment, I was just a spoiled teenager who had never done anything for anyone. The accident showed me that there were genuinely good people in the world. Marcus sat back down, interested despite himself. And how did that change your life? It made me want to be a better person. It made me want to build something that made a difference. Every important decision I've made in the last 17 years has been influenced by the memory of that day. That's a lot of pressure to put on an act that lasted a few minutes. A few minutes that saved a life. A few minutes that changed 2 lives forever. Rachel, who had been silently watching the conversation, decided to intervene. Elizabeth, can you tell me exactly what happened that day? Elizabeth looked at Marcus, who nodded slightly. It was a Sunday morning. My father had been drinking the night before and insisted on driving anyway. My mother tried to convince him to let her drive, but he got furious. In the middle of the argument, he lost control of the car. Marcus felt a strange sensation, as if those words awakened something distant in his memory. I was in the back seat without a seatbelt. The impact threw me forward, and I hit my head on the dashboard. When I woke up, there was smoke and the sound of twisted metal. I tried to move, but I was trapped. And my parents? Your father didn't survive the impact. Your mother was unconscious, but breathing. Marcus felt his chest tighten. A vague image of an injured woman flashed through his mind. That's when I heard someone shouting from outside, a young voice asking if anyone was alive in there. I said yes, and a few seconds later, you opened the back door. How do you know it was me? Because you told me your name, Marcus, and you asked if I could move. A new image flashed in Marcus's mind. A girl with blood on her face, frightened eyes, asking if she was going to die. You told me everything was going to be okay, that you were going to get me out of there. Then you carried me in your arms to a car that was stopped on the road. A car? A blue Beetle, belonging to Mr. Anthony, who worked with your grandfather. He gave you a ride to the hospital. Marcus stood up abruptly from the chair. Mr. Anthony, do you remember him? He died 5 years ago, but I remember the blue Beetle. Elizabeth held her breath. And what else do you remember? Marcus closed his eyes, trying to force the memory. I remember someone asking if I was okay, and a lot of blood. So much blood. It was my blood, said Elizabeth softly. I had a deep cut on my forehead and several scratches. Marcus opened his eyes and stared at Elizabeth. For the first time, he could see beyond the elegant woman and see the injured girl from his memory. You asked if you were going to die, and you answered that you wouldn't let that happen. The memory came like a wave. Marcus remembered the weight of the girl in his arms, the smell of smoke, the desperation to get to the hospital in time. My God, it really was you. Elizabeth smiled with tears in her eyes. It was me. Marcus sat down again, shaken by the sudden recovery of his memory. Why did I forget that? Trauma, answered Rachel. You've always forgotten very intense situations. But how could I forget something like that? Perhaps because it was too frightening, suggested Elizabeth. Seeing someone hurt like that, having the responsibility of saving a life, it must have been too much for a teenager to handle. Marcus ran his hands over his face, still processing the memories returning in pieces. I remember you crying in the car, and thinking that if you died, it would be my fault. Your fault? Why? Because maybe I wasn't fast enough. Elizabeth moved closer to his chair. Marcus, you saved me. If it weren't for you, I would have perished in that accident. But I almost didn't make it. I remember you were getting weaker and weaker. But you did. And that's what matters. Marcus looked at Elizabeth with different eyes. Now he could see the connection between the injured girl from his memory and the successful woman before him. How did you recover so well? The scars are almost imperceptible. Plastic surgery and a lot of time, but the emotional scars took longer to heal. What kind of scars? Fear of riding in cars, nightmares, guilt for having survived when my father didn't. Marcus felt a weight in his chest. You felt guilty for surviving? For a long time, until I realized that wasting the second chance you gave me would be an insult to your courage. My courage? You were 16, Marcus. The same age as me. You could have been scared and run away, but you didn't. You risked your own safety to save a complete stranger. Marcus had never thought of his actions that way. To him, it had simply been the right thing to do. I didn't do anything special. Yes, you did. And now that you remember, perhaps you can understand why I want so much to repay you. Marcus was silent for several minutes, processing everything he had remembered. Elizabeth, I still don't feel comfortable accepting your money. Why? Because I didn't do it expecting a reward. If I accept now, it will seem like I saved you out of self-interest. Elizabeth understood his concern. What if I prove to you that it's not charity or a reward, that it's genuinely a business deal that benefits us both? How? Let me show you the contracts from the shop that currently services our fleet. You can see how much we're paying and compare it to what you could charge here. Marcus hesitated. This won't commit me to anything? Absolutely nothing, just information. All right, you can show me. Elizabeth smiled, feeling she had finally made an opening. Tomorrow I'll bring all the documents. Then you can decide if you want to consider the partnership or not. And if I decide I don't want to, then I will respect your decision and won't insist anymore. Marcus nodded. Okay, but I want to be clear. I'm not promising anything. I understand perfectly. After Elizabeth left, Marcus was restless all night. Memories of the accident kept coming back in fragments, each bringing details he had forgotten. Rachel, do you think I should accept her offer? I think you should at least analyze it. It doesn't hurt to look at the numbers. But what if it's too good to be true? What if it is true, and you miss the opportunity out of pride? Marcus knew his sister was right, but he still felt uncomfortable with the whole situation. The next morning, Elizabeth arrived at the workshop promptly at 8 o'clock, carrying a folder with documents. Good morning, Marcus. Good morning. Did you bring the papers? I did. Can I spread them out on a table? Marcus cleared a workbench, and Elizabeth organized several documents, contracts, receipts, maintenance reports. This is our current fleet, she explained, showing a list with 52 vehicles. These are the monthly maintenance costs. Marcus examined the numbers and was impressed. Elizabeth's company spent monthly on maintenance more than his workshop earned in an entire year. You pay way too much. We pay market price in New York, but we have to transport the trucks there, which generates additional costs and loss of time. Marcus studied the documents carefully. The numbers were real, and the proposal made commercial sense. If I did this maintenance here, I'd charge much less than that. Exactly. You would earn more than you do now, and I would spend less than I do now. What about the equipment? Some of these services require equipment I don't have. That's part of the initial investment. I calculated that it would take about 150,000 Rs to fully adapt your workshop. Marcus almost choked. 150,000. For equipment, space expansion, hiring employees. Do you want to see the detailed budget? Elizabeth showed a meticulous spreadsheet with every necessary item. Marcus realized she had researched everything carefully. You really did your homework on this. I did. I don't do business without analyzing every detail. Marcus continued examining the documents. Everything seemed legitimate and well-planned. And what exactly would my role be? You would be in charge of the entire operation. I would invest the initial capital, and you would manage the business. 60% of the profits would be yours. What if it fails? The risk is mine. If it fails, I lose the investment. You keep your improved workshop and can seek other clients. The proposal was truly tempting. Marcus couldn't find any obvious flaws in the plan. Can I think about it? Of course. How much time do you need? A few days. I want to talk to Rachel and maybe with a lawyer. Great idea. In fact, I can recommend a lawyer specialized in commercial contracts. He can review everything for free. Marcus looked at her suspiciously. Why would you do that? Because I want you to feel secure with your decision. If you accept the partnership out of fear or pressure, it won't work. I want you to accept because you believe in the business. Elizabeth's transparency impressed Marcus. She really seemed interested in making a fair deal. All right. You can give me the lawyer's contact. Elizabeth wrote a name and phone number on a piece of paper. Dr. Daniel Foster. You can say I referred you. Marcus put the paper in his pocket. In the meantime, can I keep coming here to observe your work? Why? Because I'm still getting to know the man who saved my life, and because I like watching you work. Marcus didn't know why, but Elizabeth's presence was becoming less bothersome, maybe because now he understood her motivations. You can come, as long as you don't disturb the customers. I won't disturb. In the following days, Elizabeth continued visiting the workshop daily. Marcus noticed that she truly paid attention to his work and sometimes asked intelligent questions about the services. Dr. Daniel Foster reviewed all the documents and confirmed that the proposal was legitimate and advantageous for Marcus. The lawyer was impressed with the level of detail and transparency in the contracts. It's an excellent deal, Marcus. I rarely see proposals this clear and honest. No hidden catches? None that I can identify. In fact, some points favor you more than Elizabeth. Marcus was surprised. How so? For example, if the partnership ends for any reason, all the purchased equipment stays with you. She has no right to reclaim anything. Did she mention that? She did, and she made sure it was explicitly stated in the contract. Marcus left the lawyer's office even more confused. Elizabeth seemed genuinely interested in making a fair deal, without taking advantage of the situation. That night, he talked at length with Rachel about the proposal. Rachel, do you think I should accept? Marcus, it's the opportunity of a lifetime. Why are you still hesitating? Because it seems too good to be true. Or maybe it's just genuinely good. Sometimes good things happen to people who deserve them. I don't deserve it more than anyone else. Of course you do. You've spent your whole life taking care of me, working honestly, helping people. If anyone deserves an opportunity like this, it's you. Marcus knew Rachel was right, but he still felt an internal resistance. What if she expects something in return? Something that's not in the contract? Like what? I don't know. Maybe she wants to feel important, like she's my savior. Marcus, you're creating problems where there aren't any. Elizabeth seems like a decent person who wants to repay a favor. Why is that so hard to accept? Marcus didn't have a logical answer. Maybe it was pride or fear of change, or simply distrust that good things could happen to him. The next day, Elizabeth arrived at the shop later than usual. When she appeared, she was visibly nervous. Good morning, Marcus. Did you manage to review everything with the lawyer? I did. He said it's a beneficial deal. And what have you decided? Marcus took a deep breath. I haven't decided yet. But I have some questions. Ask any questions you want. Why do you want to do business with me specifically? There are bigger and more established shops in the city. Because I trust you. When someone saves your life, you learn something about that person's character. But that was 17 years ago. I could have completely changed. You could have, but you haven't. I've spent these days observing how you work, how you treat people. You're still the same honest person who saved me. Marcus nodded, partially satisfied with the answer. Second question. If it goes wrong, will you blame me? No. Business involves risks. If it goes wrong, It will be my responsibility for miscalculating. And if it goes right, you won't expect me to be eternally grateful? Elizabeth smiled. Marcus, if it goes right, we'll both make money. You with your work, me with the return on investment. Gratitude doesn't pay the bills. Elizabeth's pragmatic answer reassured Marcus. She really seemed to see it as a business, not as disguised charity. Last question, can we have a trial period? Have maybe 3 months of testing before signing a definitive contract. Of course, we can start with a temporary contract and then evaluate if it worked well for both of us. Marcus extended his hand. Then we have a deal. Elizabeth shook his hand with a radiant smile. We have a deal. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. In the following days, the partnership between Marcus and Elizabeth began to take shape. She brought engineers to assess the necessary modifications to the workshop, and Marcus was impressed with the speed at which everything was being organized. Elizabeth, do you always work at this pace? When I find something that interests me, yes, I don't like to waste time. And does this really interest you? Very much. It's the first time I'm doing a deal that has personal meaning beyond the financial. Marcus began to understand that this partnership was important to Elizabeth in ways that went beyond money. For her, it was a way to close a cycle that had been left open for 17 years. The workshop renovation began the following week. Elizabeth insisted on hiring only suppliers from the region itself, generating local jobs. Marcus realized she had a social conscience that wasn't just corporate marketing. Why do you insist on hiring local suppliers? Because I believe development should benefit the entire community, not just the business owners. Doesn't that cost more? Sometimes, but the long-term benefits make up for it. When the community prospers, we all prosper together. Marcus had never thought about business in this way. For him, work was just about survival. Elizabeth was showing a broader perspective. During the renovation, Elizabeth spent even more time at the workshop, overseeing every detail. Marcus noticed she knew technical aspects that most business people wouldn't know. How did you learn so much about auto repair shops? I did a lot of research before making the proposal, and I also talked to several mechanics to understand the real needs of the business. Do you always prepare this much before investing? Always. I don't do business based on intuition or emotion. Marcus grew curious. Then why did you do it with me? You haven't known me long enough to have reliable data. Elizabeth hesitated before answering. With you it was different. I already knew your character, even if I didn't know your professional competence. How can you know my character based on something that happened when I was 16? Because certain actions reveal a person's essence, and saving a stranger's life is one of those actions. Marcus reflected on this. He had never considered that his actions could be interpreted as indicators of character. Elizabeth, can I ask you a personal question? You may. Why did you never marry? A beautiful and successful woman like you certainly had opportunities. Elizabeth stopped examining the renovation blueprints and looked at him. Complete honesty? Complete honesty. Because I never found anyone who made me feel about them what I felt about you that day. Marcus was confused. What do you mean? That day, even though I was a complete stranger to you, even at personal risk, you put me first. You made my safety your top priority. I've never met a man who demonstrated that kind of selfless character. Marcus felt uncomfortable with the comparison. Elizabeth, what I did was just extraordinary. And that's what I look for in a partner, someone capable of extraordinary acts of kindness. But that's a very high expectation. You might be missing good people because of an impossible standard. Perhaps, but I'd rather be alone than settle for someone who doesn't inspire me. Marcus began to understand Elizabeth's loneliness better. She had created an ideal based on a specific moment in her life, and used that ideal as a measure for all other relationships. Don't you think that's unfair, comparing grown men to an act I did as a teenager? Why would it be unfair? Teenager or adult, you demonstrated who you really are in that moment of pressure. But people change. I've changed a lot since I was 16. Changed how? Marcus thought about it. I became more cautious, more distrustful, less willing to take risks. Less willing to save people? I don't know. I've never been in a situation like that again. Elizabeth smiled. But I bet if you were, you'd act exactly the same. Marcus wasn't sure about that, but he didn't want to argue. As the renovation progressed, Marcus realized Elizabeth had a very clear vision of what she wanted. Every detail had been thought out to maximize efficiency and employee comfort. Elizabeth, did you have any experience with auto shops before? No. But I have experience creating productive work environments. How did you learn that? Trial and error in my own businesses, and observing what works and what doesn't in other companies. Marcus was impressed with Elizabeth's ability to learn. She absorbed information quickly and applied knowledge in practical ways. Were you always like this? Did you always know you wanted to be a businesswoman? No. Before the accident, I had no special ambition. I was just an ordinary teenager worried about trivial things. And the accident changed that? It changed everything. When you almost lose your life, you realize you can't waste the time you have. Marcus had never thought about life that way. For him, each day was just another day of work and responsibilities. Elizabeth, don't you think you might be putting too much pressure on yourself, constantly trying to justify why you deserve to be alive? Elizabeth stopped what she was doing and looked at him in surprise. That's a very perceptive question. Is it true? Maybe. For a long time, I felt I needed to prove I was worth saving. And now? Now, I don't know. I still feel I need to do something meaningful with the life you gave back to me. Marcus moved closer to her. Elizabeth, you don't owe me anything. What I did that day was on impulse, not with any expectation of return. I know that rationally, but emotionally it's different. Then let me tell you something. You've already justified your survival. You built a company. You give people jobs. You contribute to the economy. You don't need to do anything more to prove your worth. Elizabeth was silent for several minutes. Thank you for saying that. It's true, and I think you should stop being so hard on yourself. Easier said than done. I know. I'm hard on myself too. About what? About Rachel. Sometimes I feel I don't do enough for her. Marcus, you sacrificed your own life to take care of your sister. How can you think you don't do enough? Because she deserves more than I can give. And what does she think about that? She says I'm the best brother in the world, but sisters always say that, right? Elizabeth smiled. Maybe she's telling the truth. Maybe you're also the best businesswoman in the world and don't realize it. Touché. They laughed together, and Marcus realized he was becoming more comfortable with Elizabeth. The sophisticated woman was revealing vulnerabilities that made her more human. Elizabeth, can I tell you something I've never told anyone? You can. Sometimes I have nightmares about that day, about not being able to save you in time. Elizabeth was shocked. You have nightmares about saving me. I have nightmares about failing to save you. I wake up sweating with the feeling that I wasn't fast enough. Marcus, you saved me. You didn't fail. Rationally, I know, but nightmares don't care about rationality. Elizabeth moved closer to him. I also have nightmares about that day. About the accident? About what would have happened if you hadn't stopped to help. Marcus understood that they had both carried trauma from that day, each in a different way. I think we both need therapy. Probably, Elizabeth laughed, but at least now we can have nightmares together. That doesn't make anything better. Yes, it does. Now we know we're not alone with these memories. Marcus agreed. Sharing those fears with the only other person who had lived through the experience was strangely comforting. The shop renovation was completed in 3 weeks. The result exceeded all of Marcus's expectations. The space had tripled. The equipment was state-of-the-art, and there were specific areas for each type of service. Elizabeth, this is incredible. Much better than I imagined. Did you really like it? I did. It looks like a real professional shop. It was always a professional shop. Now it just has the structure it deserved. Marcus walked through the new spaces, still impressed by the transformation. How am I going to manage all of this? We'll hire employees. I already have some candidates pre-selected. You already selected employees without consulting me. Pre-selected. The final decision is yours. Marcus was relieved. Elizabeth was still respecting his operational autonomy. How many people will we need? To start, 3 more mechanics and an administrative assistant. An administrative assistant? Someone to handle orders, inventory, scheduling. You won't have time for that and still do the technical work. Marcus had never thought about the need to separate administrative functions from technical ones. You thought of everything, didn't you? I tried to, but there will definitely be things I didn't anticipate. And if they come up, we'll handle them as they appear. No business is perfect from the start. The naturalness with which Elizabeth handled uncertainty impressed Marcus. She seemed comfortable with the idea that not everything could be planned. The first employees started the following week. Elizabeth had chosen well. They were all competent and adapted quickly to the new routine. Marcus was surprised by his own leadership ability. He had never managed employees before, but discovered he had a knack for delegating tasks and keeping the team motivated. How am I doing as a boss? He asked Elizabeth at the end of the first week. Very well. You have a natural leadership style. Natural how? You don't command, you guide. The employees respect you because they know you understand the work better than they do. Is that different from commanding? Completely. Leaders who only command create unmotivated employees. Leaders who guide create engaged employees. Marcus had never thought about leadership that way, but it made sense. How did you learn about leadership? By making a lot of mistakes at first. When I started my first company, I thought being the boss meant giving orders all the time. And it doesn't? No. It means creating conditions for people to do their best work. Marcus watched Elizabeth interacting with the new employees. She was friendly but professional, interested but not intrusive. Elizabeth, can I make an observation? Go ahead. You're very different from what I imagined a wealthy businesswoman would be. How so? I imagined you'd be more arrogant, more distant. Elizabeth laughed. And how did you discover I'm not? By observing how you treat people. You don't act like you're superior to anyone. Because I don't feel superior to anyone. I have more money, but that doesn't make me a better person. Not everyone with money thinks that way. You're right. I've met many business people who confuse financial success with moral superiority. Marcus nodded. He had met people like that and always felt uncomfortable in their presence. Elizabeth, do you think money changes people? I think money reveals who people really are. If someone becomes arrogant when they get rich, the arrogance was already there before. And in your case? In my case, money gave me the freedom to be more generous. But generosity was already part of who I am. Marcus reflected on that. Elizabeth truly demonstrated consistent generosity, not only toward him, but also toward the employees and suppliers. The first month of the new auto shop was a success. Hayes logistics trucks began arriving for maintenance, and Marcus discovered that working with commercial vehicles was more challenging, but also more rewarding than fixing passenger cars. Marcus, how are you feeling with the new work format? Asked Elizabeth. Different, more responsibility, but also more satisfaction. Satisfaction in what sense? In knowing that I'm doing something important. These trucks transport goods that people need. If I do a poor job, it affects a lot of people. Elizabeth smiled. You've always had social awareness even without realizing it. How so? When you repaired passenger cars, you also cared about doing work that ensured people's safety. Now you're just aware of it. Marcus had never thought of his work as having social impact, but Elizabeth was right. Elizabeth, do you think people should think more about the impact of their work? Definitely. When you understand how your work affects others, it becomes more meaningful. Is that why you enjoy being a business owner so much? It's one of the reasons. I like knowing that my company creates jobs, stimulates the economy, contributes to the region's development. Marcus began to understand that Elizabeth saw business as a form of social contribution, not just a way to make money. Have you always had this vision? No. In the beginning, my focus was just on surviving in the market. The social vision came later, as the company grew. What caused that change? Maturity, and also the realization that success without purpose is empty. Marcus nodded. He was starting to feel something similar with the new format of the shop. In the second month, the partnership was working so well that Elizabeth proposed expanding their services. Marcus, how about we offer preventive maintenance for other companies in the region? Other companies? Yes. There are several smaller carriers that could benefit from our services. Marcus liked the idea but had a concern. Won't we be competing with other mechanics in town? Not necessarily. We can focus on a specific niche, commercial fleet maintenance. And that won't bother the competitors. Maybe, but healthy competition is good for the market. Marcus had no experience with business competition and felt insecure about the subject. Elizabeth, how do you handle competitors? With respect, but without fear. Competition motivates me to be better. What if they try to harm us? Then we'll show we're better through our work, not through a commercial war. Elizabeth's attitude toward competition reassured Marcus. He didn't want to get involved in unnecessary conflicts. The service expansion brought new challenges. Marcus needed to hire 2 more employees and learn to manage more complex operations. Elizabeth, sometimes I feel lost with all this responsibility. It's normal. You're growing professionally very fast. How did you handle it when your company grew? With a lot of anxiety and some sleepless nights, but also with a lot of determination. What if I can't keep up with the growth? Then we'll adjust the pace. Growth has to be sustainable. Elizabeth's patience with Marcus's insecurities impressed him. She could push for faster results, but chose to respect his pace. Elizabeth, why are you so patient with me? Because I recognize value in you, and valuable people deserve time to develop. But that must affect your other businesses. You spend a lot of time here. I spend it because I choose to. This project is important to me. Marcus began to realize that his partnership with Elizabeth went beyond the obvious business benefits. She genuinely cared about his success. By the 3rd month, the shop was operating at full capacity. Marcus had completely adapted to the new responsibilities and discovered talents he didn't know he possessed. Marcus, I need to tell you something, Elizabeth said on a Friday afternoon. Go ahead. I received an offer to sell Hayes Logistics. Marcus felt his stomach drop. An offer. From a large corporate group in New York. They want to incorporate my company into their portfolio. And are you going to accept? I haven't decided yet. That's why I wanted to talk to you first. Marcus sat down heavily in a chair. If you sell the company, does our partnership end? Not necessarily. It would depend on the new owners. But probably yes. Elizabeth sighed. Probably yes. Marcus felt a mix of sadness and panic. Over the past few months, he had grown accustomed to the financial stability and Elizabeth's constant presence. When do you need to give an answer? In 2 weeks. And what are you thinking of doing? I'm torn. Financially, it's an excellent opportunity. But personally, I don't want to abandon what we've built here. Marcus was surprised. He didn't know Elizabeth considered their partnership so important. Elizabeth, you can't pass up a good deal because of me. It's not just because of you, it's for me too. This partnership has brought me something money can't buy. What? Purpose, meaning, the feeling of doing something genuinely important. Marcus understood. Elizabeth had found in the shop something that was missing in her business life, a personal connection to the work. But you can find purpose in other projects. I can, but I don't want to trade something I know works for something uncertain. Marcus was touched by Elizabeth's loyalty, but also felt guilty for being an obstacle to a financial opportunity. Elizabeth, can I suggest something? Go ahead. Accept the offer, but negotiate to keep our partnership. How? Sell the company, but keep this shop as a separate personal project. Elizabeth reflected on the suggestion. It's possible. It would be more complicated, but it's possible. That way you don't lose the financial opportunity, and I don't lose the partnership. And you wouldn't feel abandoned. I would. But I'd feel worse knowing I kept you from growing professionally. Elizabeth looked at Marcus with admiration. Do you always put others' interests before your own? Not always. But when I like the person, yes. You like me? Marcus hesitated. Over the past few months, his feelings for Elizabeth had become complicated. She was a business partner, but she was also much more than that. Yes, I like you. As a friend? It's complicated. Elizabeth moved closer to him. Complicated how? Elizabeth, you're a beautiful, intelligent, successful woman. Any man would be attracted to you. Does that include you? That includes me. But I also know we're from very different worlds. Elizabeth smiled. Different how? You're rich, cultured, sophisticated. I'm a mechanic from the outskirts. Marcus, do you think those differences matter to me? They should matter. Why? Because you can have any man you want. Why would you choose someone like me? Elizabeth took his hands. Because you're the only man I know who would save a stranger's life without expecting anything in return. Elizabeth, because you're the only man I know who sacrificed his own life to care for a sister. That's not because you're the only man I know who cares more about my success than his own. Marcus was speechless. Elizabeth, you're idealizing who I am. I'm seeing exactly who you are, and I really like what I see. Marcus felt his heart race. Helena's proximity, the sincerity in her eyes, everything conspired to make him forget the reasons why that relationship would be complicated. Helena, even if I felt the same, you do. I do. But that doesn't solve the practical problems. What problems? Social differences, differences in expectations, differences in lifestyle. Helena stepped back slightly. Marcus, you're creating problems where they don't exist. I'm being realistic. You're being a coward. The word hit Marcus like a punch. A coward. You had the courage to save my life when you were a teenager, but you don't have the courage to admit your feelings as an adult. Marcus grew irritated. Saving your life didn't have complicated emotional consequences. It didn't? Then why did you block the memory for 17 years? Marcus had no answer for that. Helena, even if you're right about me being a coward, it doesn't change the fact that we're very different. Different in what? In money? In formal education? In superficial things? Those things aren't superficial. They affect how people see the world. How I see the world. You see the world as a place full of opportunities. I see it as a place full of responsibilities. Helena reflected on that. Maybe that's exactly why we would work well together. I would teach you to see more opportunities. You would teach me to be more responsible. Marcus had to admit it made sense, but he still felt resistant. Helena, I can't afford to fall in love and have it go wrong. I have too many responsibilities. Who says it will go wrong? Statistically, most relationships do. Statistically, most people don't save the lives of strangers. But you did. Marcus smiled in spite of himself. You always have an answer for everything. Not always, but I usually have an answer for the excuses people make to avoid risks. What if I'm right? What if it doesn't work? Then at least we will have tried. Would you rather spend the rest of your life wondering what if or find out the answer? Marcus looked into Helena's eyes and saw a mixture of hope and vulnerability that completely disarmed him. Helena, I don't know how to have a relationship with someone like you. Like me. Strong, independent, successful. I've never dated a woman who didn't need me financially. And you think I need you financially? Obviously not. Then why do you think I'm interested in you? Marcus thought about it. Honestly, I don't know. Helena smiled. Because you make me feel safe. Not financially, but emotionally. How? Because I know that if I need it, you will put my well-being above anything else, just like you did when I was 16. Marcus understood. Helena wasn't looking for someone to take care of her materially, but someone who genuinely cared for her. Helena, Even if we tried, how would it work? You have a social life I don't know, commitments I don't understand. Marcus, relationships are about two people, not about social life or external commitments. But those things affect relationships, only if we let them, and only if they aren't genuine. Marcus was running out of arguments against something he, deep down, very much wanted to try. Helena, are you sure about this? Because if we start something and it doesn't work, it will complicate our business partnership. I'm sure I want to try. As for the rest, we'll figure it out together. Marcus looked at Helena for a long moment. She had shown consistent patience, generosity, and sincerity. Perhaps it was time to show a little courage. All right, let's try. Helena smiled radiantly. Let's try. They kissed for the first time right there in the garage, surrounded by the smell of oil and the distant noise of traffic. It was a soft, hesitant kiss, loaded with 17 years of unspoken history. When they pulled apart, Marcus felt a mix of happiness and nervousness. And now? Now we take it slow and see what happens. Marcus nodded. For the first time in a long while, he felt hopeful about the future, in a way that wasn't just related to responsibilities and work. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. In the following weeks, Marcus and Elizabeth began to carefully explore the boundaries of their new relationship. They went out to dinner after work, talked for hours about subjects that went beyond business, and discovered unexpected common ground. Marcus was surprised to learn that Elizabeth liked old movies, country music, and simple food. Elizabeth was charmed by Marcus's ability to fix anything, his infinite patience with Rachel, and his gentle way of treating everyone. Marcus, can I ask you a personal question? You've asked so many. One more won't make a difference. Why did you never marry? Seriously, a man like you should have been fought over by women. Marcus was embarrassed. I never had the time. And besides, I never found someone who understood my situation with Rachel. How so? Most women felt threatened by my dedication to my sister. They thought I would never put a wife first. And were they right? Marcus thought honestly. Probably. Rachel has always been my top priority. And has that changed now? I don't know. I'm still figuring out how to balance it. Elizabeth appreciated his honesty. Marcus, I don't want to compete with Rachel for your affection. I want to complement your life, not complicate it. How? By helping you take better care of her, giving support when you need it, being part of the family instead of a threat to it. Marcus had never considered that a romantic partner could integrate into his family dynamic instead of disrupting it. You've really thought about this? I've thought a lot. Rachel is an essential part of who you are. Any woman who truly loved you would have to love her too. And do you think you could love Rachel? I already do. She's smart, brave, funny. It's impossible not to like her. Marcus felt a deep emotion. Few people had seen Rachel beyond her physical disability. Elizabeth, that means a lot to me. It means a lot to me too. Rachel helped me understand who you really are. During this period, Elizabeth continued postponing the decision about selling the company. The buyers were pressing for an answer, but she wanted to be sure she had found a way to protect her partnership with Marcus. Marcus, I managed to negotiate a deal. What kind of deal? I can sell Hayes Logistics, but keep this garage as an independent division. The new owners won't have any say in our operation here. And financially, how would that work? I would continue investing my own money in the garage, regardless of the sale of the larger company. Marcus was impressed by the creativity of the solution. Won't that be more complicated for you to manage? It will, but it's worth it. Why? Because this place has become special to me. It's where I found you. It's where we built something together. Marcus felt his chest tighten with emotion. Elizabeth, you don't have to sacrifice opportunities for my sake. It's not a sacrifice when you're doing something you truly want to do. Elizabeth's dedication to their partnership, even in the face of more lucrative opportunities, showed Marcus that she took both the personal and professional relationship seriously. So you're going to accept the buyout offer? I am, with the conditions I negotiated. Marcus smiled. I'm proud of you. Why? for finding a way to grow professionally without abandoning what we built together. Elizabeth kissed him softly. I learned that from you. Loyalty to important people is worth more than money. The sale of Hayes Logistics was completed 3 weeks later. Elizabeth kept a small team to run the shop as an independent company, and she officially became Marcus's partner in a new venture called Bennett and Hayes Automotive Services. I like the name, said Marcus. It sounds professional. I chose it because it puts your name first. After all, you're the one who really understands the business. Marcus was touched by Elizabeth's consideration in putting his name first. The new arrangement brought a financial stability Marcus had never imagined possible. For the first time in his life, he could think about long-term plans that weren't just about survival. Elizabeth, can I tell you something? Always. For the first time in my life, I'm thinking about taking a vacation. Elizabeth smiled. Really? Really? I never had the money or time for a vacation, but now, what would you like to do? Take Rachel to the beach. She's always dreamed of seeing the ocean. Elizabeth was moved by the simplicity and love in that wish. Marcus, what if we did that together? All 3 of us. You would come with us? If you'll have me, yes. Marcus couldn't imagine anything better. Of course we want you. The beach trip was planned for the following month. It would be the first time Marcus left Austin for leisure, and the first time Rachel saw the ocean. During the preparations, Marcus noticed how naturally Elizabeth integrated into the family dynamic. She helped with accessibility arrangements for Rachel, researched suitable restaurants and hotels, and showed genuine excitement for the trip. Elizabeth, have you been to the beach a lot? I have, but never with people who have never seen the ocean before. I think it will be exciting to see it through your eyes. Marcus admired how Elizabeth found joy in simple experiences through the eyes of others. 1 week before the trip, Marcus received an unexpected phone call. It was the owner of the shop where he had worked as an employee years ago. Marcus, I need to talk to you urgently. About what, Mr. Mario? About your new shop. People are saying you're engaging in unfair competition, stealing my clients. Marcus was shocked. Unfair competition? I work with commercial fleets, not the same clients as you. That's not what they're saying at the Mechanics Association. Marcus didn't know there was a Mechanics Association, much less that they were speaking ill of him. What kind of things are they saying? That you're offering impossible prices because you have a wealthy partner covering losses. Marcus felt his blood boil. That's not true. Our prices are fair, and we still make a profit. Be that as it may, you're upsetting a lot of people. After the phone call, Marcus was troubled. He didn't want to make enemies in town, but he also couldn't accept unfair accusations. When he told Elizabeth, she didn't seem surprised. It was expected that this would happen. It was. When you improve your life a lot very quickly, it always causes suspicion. And what should we do? Keep working honestly. The truth always wins in the end. Marcus admired Elizabeth's serenity, but he remained worried. What if they try to harm us in some way? Then we'll prove we're better through results, not through conflict. A few days later, Marcus discovered that someone had spread flyers around town accusing his shop of unfair practices. The material was anonymous but clearly came from other business owners in the industry. Elizabeth, this is really bothering me. I understand. But remember what we talked about, showing who we are through our work? I remember. But these accusations could damage our reputation, only if they were true. Since we know they're false, we can refute them with facts. Elizabeth suggested they organize a meeting with all the automotive business owners in the city to clear up misunderstandings and propose a respectful professional coexistence. Do you think they'll agree to talk? Some will, and those who don't will show their true colors. The meeting was scheduled for the following week. Marcus was nervous, but Elizabeth reassured him with her confidence and preparation. Marcus, remember, you're not apologizing for being successful. You're offering transparency and proposing collaboration. And if they remain hostile, then we know where we stand and can make informed decisions. Marcus admired the way Elizabeth viewed conflicts as opportunities for clarification, not as personal threats. The meeting was tense but productive. Marcus and Elizabeth presented transparent numbers about their operations, showed they weren't engaging in price dumping, and proposed market specialization to reduce competitive overlap. Most of the business owners present left the meeting with a better understanding of the situation. Some even apologized for the hasty accusations. "How do you feel now?" Elizabeth asked after the meeting. "Relieved, and proud of how we handled it." "Why proud?" "Because we maintained our dignity, were honest, and proposed solutions instead of just defending ourselves." Elizabeth smiled. "You've learned quickly how to handle business challenges. I learned from a good teacher." After that experience, Marcus felt more confident about his position as a business owner. He had faced his first serious professional conflict and emerged stronger. The trip to the beach finally arrived. Seeing Rachel's reaction upon seeing the ocean for the first time was one of the most moving moments of Marcus's life. "Marcus, it's even more beautiful than I imagined," said Rachel with tears in her eyes. "It really is beautiful," agreed Marcus, also moved. Elizabeth watched the siblings sharing that special moment and felt privileged to be part of that family. During the 3 days at the beach, Marcus relaxed in a way he couldn't remember experiencing before. For the first time in decades, he had no immediate worries about money, work, or urgent responsibilities. "Marcus, how are you feeling?" Elizabeth asked as they walked on the sand. "Different, light, as if I've taken a weight off my shoulders." "What weight?" "The constant worry. The feeling that I always had to be on alert to protect our survival." Elizabeth understood. Marcus had lived in survival mode for so long that relaxing truly was a new experience. "Do you think you can get used to this feeling?" "I hope so. It's scary, but good." "Why scary?" "Because when you get used to security, you become afraid of losing it." Elizabeth held his hand. "Marcus, you built this security through honest work and smart decisions. It wasn't luck or an accident. But it also wouldn't have happened without you. It would have happened differently, but it would have happened. You have talent and character. Success was inevitable." Marcus wasn't sure about that, but he appreciated Elizabeth's confidence in his abilities. During the trip, Marcus noticed how easily Elizabeth adapted to different situations. She was equally at ease in a 5-star hotel and in a simple beach shack. "Elizabeth, have you always been like this, adaptable to any environment?" "Not always. I learned it after the accident." "How did the accident teach you that?" "Because it showed me that comfort and safety are temporary illusions. The only constant is change." Marcus reflected on this philosophy. "Doesn't that make you anxious? Never knowing what to expect. On the contrary, it frees me to enjoy what I have now without being obsessed with controlling the future." Marcus admired this perspective, but still felt more comfortable with planning and predictability. "I guess I'm still learning to live like that." "It's normal. You spent years in survival mode. It will take time to get used to abundance." "Abundance?" "Abundance of time, resources, options, things you didn't have before." Marcus had never thought of his new situation as abundance, but Elizabeth was right. On the last day of the trip, Rachel made an unexpected request. "Marcus, Elizabeth, can I say something to both of you?" "Of course," replied Marcus. "I've never seen my brother as happy as he is with you, Elizabeth, and I've never felt so included in one of his relationships." Elizabeth was moved. "Thank you, Rachel. That means a lot to me." "It also means a lot to me to have both of you in my life," continued Rachel. "I feel like we finally have a complete family." Marcus felt his eyes fill with tears. Rachel's full approval removed his last resistance to surrendering completely to the relationship with Elizabeth. "Elizabeth," he said, overcome by the emotion of the moment, "I love you." It was the first time he had said those words. "I love you too, Marcus," she replied. "I have for a while." They kissed by the sea, with Rachel smiling and applauding in the background, in a moment that seemed to definitively seal the union of the two halves of their lives. Back in Austin, Marcus found the shop running perfectly under the supervision of the employees he had trained. Discovering he could be absent without everything falling apart was another important revelation. "Elizabeth, I think I finally understand what you meant about delegation." How so? I always thought I had to personally control every detail, but I found out I can trust people to do a good job. And how does that make you feel? Free, and a little scared of all that freedom. Elizabeth laughed. It's a good combination, freedom with awareness of responsibilities. In the following months, Marcus continued to grow both personally and professionally. He began taking business administration courses, expanded his technical knowledge, and developed leadership skills he didn't know he possessed. Elizabeth, sometimes I feel like I've become a completely different person. Different how? More confident, more ambitious, more willing to take calculated risks. Do you think that's good or bad? Good, I think, but also strange. Sometimes I don't recognize myself. Elizabeth understood. Marcus, you haven't become a different person. You've become the person you always had the potential to be but never had the opportunity. Do you really believe that? Absolutely. The qualities I admire in you now are the same ones that saved me 17 years ago. They're just being expressed in different ways. Marcus reflected on this and realized Elizabeth was right. His essence hadn't changed. Only his circumstances allowed him to express it more completely. 1 year after the partnership began, Marcus and Elizabeth celebrated the shop's success with all the employees. The company had grown 300%, employed 12 people, and served more than 30 businesses in the region. Marcus, would you like to give a speech? Suggested Elizabeth. A speech? To thank the team and share the joy of success. Marcus had never given a public speech, but he felt it was the appropriate moment. Everyone, he began nervously, a year ago I was just a mechanic trying to keep a small shop running. Today we are a respected company, offering the best automotive services in the region. The employees applauded. This was only possible because each of you embraced this project as if it were your own business. You are not just employees, you are partners in our success. Marcus looked at Elizabeth, who smiled with pride. I also want to thank Elizabeth, who believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. She didn't just invest money, she invested trust. Elizabeth felt her eyes welling up. But most importantly, Marcus continued, we built something that goes beyond profit. We built a professional family based on mutual respect and shared goals. When he finished the speech, Marcus realized he had discovered another skill he didn't know he possessed, inspiring people through sincere words. How did I do? He asked Elizabeth afterward. Perfectly. You spoke from the heart, and that always works. I learned that from you too. Elizabeth kissed him softly. I think we've learned a lot from each other. That night at home, Rachel made an observation that surprised Marcus. Marcus, did you know you've changed a lot in the last year? Changed how? Physically, you stand taller, more confident. Emotionally, you're lighter, happier. And professionally, you've become a natural leader. Marcus hadn't noticed these changes in himself. Do you think I've changed for the better? Definitely, but what I like most is that you're still the same caring and protective brother you've always been. I was afraid success might make me different with you. No. If anything, it made you more present. Before, you were always too worried to really relax and enjoy our time together. Marcus realized Rachel was right. Paradoxically, having more professional responsibilities had made him less tense at home. Rachel, can I tell you a secret? Go ahead. I'm thinking of asking Elizabeth to marry me. Rachel squealed with joy. Really? When? I don't know yet. I'm thinking about how to propose. What kind of proposal do you think she'd like? Marcus had thought about this. Something simple but meaningful. Elizabeth doesn't need a big show. Something related to your history? Exactly. But I don't know exactly what. Rachel had an idea. What if you proposed at the accident site? Marcus became thoughtful. It would be symbolic, the place where it all began. And maybe it's a way to turn a traumatic memory into a happy one. Marcus liked the idea. Proposing at the accident site would be a poetic way to close the circle of their story. In the following days, Marcus visited the accident site to plan the proposal. The road had been modernized, but he managed to identify the approximate spot where it all happened. He decided he would take Elizabeth there on a special date, the 2-year anniversary of the accident, which also marked the beginning of the journey that had brought them back together. Marcus bought a simple but elegant ring, symbolizing commitment without showiness. He also prepared a speech that expressed his feelings in a way that honored both their past and their future. On the chosen day, Marcus invited Elizabeth for a drive, without revealing the destination. "Where are we going?" she asked, curious. "It's a surprise, but it's a special place." Elizabeth noticed Marcus was nervous but respected the mystery. When they arrived at the accident site, Elizabeth immediately recognized where they were. "Marcus, why did we come here?" "Because this is where our lives first crossed paths, and I want this to be where we officially decide to spend the rest of our lives together." Marcus knelt by the side of the road and took the ring from his pocket. "Elizabeth, 17 years ago you asked if you were going to die, and I promised I wouldn't let that happen. Today I want to make a new promise, not to let you face a single day of your life alone." Elizabeth covered her face with her hands, moved. "Marcus, you brought light into my life in a way I never imagined possible. You taught me I can dream beyond survival, that I can build something great, that I can be happy without feeling guilty." "Marcus, yes. Of course, yes." He hadn't officially asked the question yet, but she already knew where this was going. "Elizabeth Hayes, will you marry me and build a family with Rachel and me?" "Yes, 1,000 times, yes." They kissed right there, by the side of the road, transforming a place of trauma into a place of celebration and hope. When they returned home, Rachel was waiting with a small surprise party. She had invited the shop employees and a few close neighbors to celebrate the engagement. "How did you know?" asked Elizabeth, surprised. "Marcus told me the plan, and I couldn't let an occasion like this go by unmarked." The simple party at the siblings' house was one of the happiest nights of Marcus's life. Seeing Elizabeth interacting naturally with his people, seeing her genuinely at ease in his simple world, confirmed they had made the right choice. "Elizabeth," said Marcus during the party, "thank you for accepting not just to marry me, but for accepting our life as it is. Marcus, this is the life I always wanted. Family, meaningful work, genuine people. You've given me so much more than material wealth." "What have I given you?" "A home, a family, a purpose, bigger than profit." Marcus understood that just as he had saved Elizabeth's physical life 17 years earlier, she had saved his emotional life by showing him possibilities he had never considered. The wedding preparations were simple, but full of meaning. Elizabeth insisted on a small ceremony just with family and close friends at the neighborhood church where Marcus had grown up. "Are you sure you don't want something more elegant?" asked Marcus. "Absolutely sure. I want to get married in your world, with your people, in your way." "Why?" "Because this is where I found the real Elizabeth, the woman I can be when I don't need to prove anything to anyone." Marcus was moved by the revelation that Elizabeth, just like him, had found a more authentic version of herself through their relationship. The wedding took place 6 months later, in a beautiful and moving ceremony. Marcus cried when Elizabeth entered the church, stunning in a simple yet elegant dress that enhanced her natural beauty. "You come together here today," said the priest during the ceremony, "to celebrate a love that began in an act of courage and grew through constant gestures of mutual generosity." Marcus and Elizabeth exchanged vows they had written personally, expressing specific commitments that reflected their individual and shared journeys. "Elizabeth," said Marcus during his vows, "I promise to keep being the man you saw in me, even when I couldn't see it myself. I promise to build with you a life based on love, honest work, and care for the people who are important to us." "Marcus," Elizabeth replied, "I promise to honor the brave and generous man who saved me twice, first physically when I was 16, and then emotionally, when you showed me that success without love is empty. I promise to be your partner in everything, forever." When they were declared husband and wife, Marcus felt he had finally found his place in the world, not just as Rachel's protective brother or the competent mechanic, but as the complete man who was capable of loving and being loved fully. The wedding reception was held at the shop itself, which was decorated for the occasion. Seeing the space where he worked transformed into a place of celebration symbolized for Marcus how work and personal happiness could coexist harmoniously. "Marcus," said Elizabeth during the party, "do you have any regrets?" "None. And you?" "Just one." Marcus grew worried. "What is it?" "That it took 17 years for us to find each other again." Marcus laughed, relieved. "Perhaps we needed those 17 years to become the right people for each other." "You're right. If we had met earlier, maybe we wouldn't have been ready for this," Marcus agreed. Their maturity and life experiences had been necessary to build the solid relationship they had. The first months of marriage were a delightful adjustment. Elizabeth moved into the brothers' house, which was expanded to comfortably accommodate all three. The family dynamic adjusted naturally, with each finding their space and responsibilities. "How is it living with us?" Marcus asked Elizabeth. "Better than I imagined. It's the first time in my life I've felt truly at home. Even with all the simplicity. Especially because of the simplicity. There's no pressure to impress anyone, no social protocols. It's just real life with people who love me." Marcus understood that Elizabeth had found in his family something money couldn't buy: authenticity and unconditional acceptance. The auto shop continued to thrive under the joint leadership of Marcus and Elizabeth. They developed an efficient working dynamic where Marcus handled the technical operations and Elizabeth the business strategies. "Marcus, would you like us to expand to other cities?" "Expand how?" "By opening branches of Bennett & Hayes in Austin and other cities in the region." Marcus hesitated. The idea was tempting, but also frightening. "I don't know if I'm ready for something that big." "You don't have to decide now. It's just a possibility for us to consider in the future." Marcus appreciated that Elizabeth always presented opportunities without pressuring for immediate decisions. "Elizabeth, can I ask a question?" "Always." "Do you sometimes miss the life you had before? The big deals, the decisions that affected hundreds of people?" Elizabeth reflected carefully. "Sometimes I miss the adrenaline of big business, but I never miss the loneliness that came with it." "And isn't it frustrating to work on a smaller scale?" "It's not smaller, Marcus, it's more focused. Here I see the direct impact of our work on people's lives. It's more rewarding than abstract numbers on spreadsheets." Marcus was satisfied with the answer. Elizabeth had truly found satisfaction in a simpler, more centered life. 2 years after the wedding, Elizabeth made an announcement that would change their lives again. "Marcus, I have some news." "Good or bad?" "Depends on your point of view." Marcus grew nervous. "I'm pregnant." Marcus was in shock for a few seconds before a huge smile spread across his face. "Really? Are you sure?" "I am. I took 3 tests." Marcus picked her up in his arms and spun her around, both laughing with joy. "Rachel," he shouted. "Rachel, come here." When Rachel arrived and learned the news, the house filled with happy tears and plans for the future. "Marcus," Elizabeth said that night, "how do you feel about becoming a father?" "Nervous and happy at the same time. And you, about becoming a mother?" "The same, but mostly grateful." "Grateful for what?" "For having found the right man with whom to build a family." Marcus kissed Elizabeth's still flat belly. "Our child will be very lucky to have you as a mother. And we'll be very lucky to have you as a father, and Rachel as an aunt. A complete family. The family I always dreamed of." Elizabeth's pregnancy proceeded without complications. Marcus proved to be an even more attentive husband, and Rachel was thrilled at the prospect of being an aunt. "Marcus, are you excited?" asked Rachel. "Very much. And what if I don't know how to be a good father?" "You will be a wonderful father. Look how you've taken care of me my whole life. But with you, I always knew I was doing the right thing. With a baby, it will be different. It will be different, but you'll figure it out, and you'll have Elizabeth to help." Marcus knew Rachel was right, but the responsibility of having his own child still made him nervous. Elizabeth gave birth to a healthy baby girl who was named Hope in honor of the feeling that had guided the parents' entire journey. "She's perfect," said Marcus, holding his daughter for the first time. "She's our little miracle," agreed Elizabeth, "our little hope." Seeing Marcus with his daughter in his arms, with the same protective care he had always shown Rachel, confirmed for Elizabeth that she had chosen the right man to build a family with. The first months with Hope transformed the household dynamic in a wonderful way. Marcus discovered he had a natural ability for caring for babies, and Elizabeth proved to be a dedicated yet balanced mother. "Elizabeth, how is it going, balancing motherhood with work?" "Easier than I imagined. Having you and Rachel as partners makes all the difference." "And you don't feel like you're missing important time with Hope?" "No, I'm working fewer hours and making better use of the time I have with her." Marcus admired Elizabeth's ability to find balance between her different responsibilities. The auto shop continued to grow, even with the owner's divided attention. The employees had taken on more responsibilities and showed a genuine commitment to the company's success. "Marcus," said one of the mechanics, "thank you for giving us the opportunity to grow professionally." "How so?" "You could have hired more experienced mechanics, but you chose to invest in training us. That made all the difference in our lives." Marcus realized that, without conscious intention, he had replicated the development model Elizabeth had used with him. "You deserve the opportunities, I just created the conditions." But not every boss would do that. Most want immediate results. Marcus understood better the positive impact his management choices had had on the employees' lives. That night, he talked to Elizabeth about it. "Elizabeth, I think I finally understand what you meant about businesses having a social purpose." "How so?" "When you invest in people's development, you're not just improving your company, you're improving their lives and the lives of their families." "Exactly. And that creates a positive cycle that benefits everyone." Marcus felt proud to have learned to see his business as a tool for positive impact, not just for personal gain. When Hope turned 1, Marcus and Elizabeth decided to have a special celebration. They organized a party at the auto shop, bringing together family, employees, clients, and friends. "Marcus," said Elizabeth during the party, "would you like to give a speech?" "About what?" "About what we've learned this year." Marcus agreed. There was much to share. "Everyone," he began, "a year ago our family gained a new member. Hope not only brought joy to our home, but taught us important lessons about what really matters in life." The guests listened attentively. "We learned that professional success without family happiness is empty. We learned that economic growth without personal development is limited. And we learned that prosperity without generosity is selfish." Marcus looked at Elizabeth, who was smiling proudly. "This past year confirmed we made the right choices. We built an honest business, a solid family, and a community of people who support each other." When he finished the speech, Marcus realized he had articulated a life philosophy that had emerged naturally from his experiences with Elizabeth. "How did I do?" he asked her afterward. "Perfectly. You managed to express complex values in a simple and touching way." "I learned that by watching you," Elizabeth smiled. "I think we've learned a lot from each other." Marcus agreed. Their relationship had been a constant mutual education in how to be better people and professionals. A few months later, Marcus received an unexpected invitation. A local university wanted him to give a lecture on entrepreneurship and overcoming adversity for business students. "Elizabeth, do you think I should accept?" "Of course. You have an inspiring story to share." "But I'm not a successful businessman in the traditional sense. I didn't build an empire or make millions." "Marcus, you built something more valuable, a balanced and meaningful life. That's exactly what young people need to hear." Marcus accepted the invitation and carefully prepared for the lecture. Elizabeth helped him structure his ideas so they would be useful for the students. "What's the main message you want to convey?" she asked. "That success isn't just about money, it's about building something meaningful that benefits other people too." "Perfect, and how do you plan to illustrate that?" "By telling our story, how you saved me twice and how that led us to build something together." Elizabeth was moved by Marcus's approach. "Are you going to talk about the accident?" "I am. It's an essential part of the story." The lecture was a success. Marcus spoke sincerely about his journey, from the lonely mechanic to the fulfilled businessman, emphasizing the role of other people in his transformation. "What I learned," he told the students, "is that no true success is individual. There are always people who believe in you before you even believe in yourself." The students asked many questions. mainly about how to balance personal ambition with social responsibility. You don't have to choose between being financially successful and being a good person, Marcus answered. In fact, I've found that the two complement each other. When you treat people well, they want to work with you and for you. After the lecture, several students approached to thank him and ask for specific advice. "Professor Marcus," said a young woman, "how can I know if I'm on the right path? If what you do benefits other people besides yourself, you're probably on the right path." Marcus was surprised by his own ability to guide young professionals, but Elizabeth wasn't. "You've always been a natural mentor," she said. "Look at how you developed the employees at the shop." But mentoring college students is different. The essence is the same, identifying potential in people and creating conditions for them to develop. Marcus agreed and decided to accept more invitations to speak. He discovered he had genuine satisfaction in sharing his experiences with people who were starting their careers. Around this time, Elizabeth made a suggestion that would change the course of their lives again. "Marcus, what if we wrote a book about our story?" "A book?" "Yes. Our journey could inspire other people who are facing similar difficulties. Do you think anyone would be interested in our story? I think many people would relate to it. Stories of overcoming adversity, true love, and success built on solid values always touch people." Marcus considered the idea. There really were aspects of their journey that could be useful to others. "How would it work? Would you write and I'd tell the stories? We could write it together, each of us telling our perspective of the events. It would be interesting to see how each of us perceived the same events differently." Elizabeth smiled. "Exactly. And it would be a way to document our story for Hope when she grows up." Marcus liked the idea of leaving a written record of how their lives had intertwined. "All right, let's write our book." The process of writing the book was revealing for both of them. Reviewing their journey together, comparing memories and perspectives, deepened their mutual understanding even further. "Marcus, do you remember when you offered me that envelope with money the first time?" "I remember. You were offended and threw it back." "I didn't throw it back. You politely placed it in my hand and said you didn't accept charity." "That's true. Sometimes my memory exaggerates my reactions." Elizabeth laughed. "We all do that. It's interesting how the same experience can be remembered in slightly different ways." The book was completed in 6 months. Elizabeth found interested publishers, and You Saved Me, A Story of Love, Overcoming and Second Chances was published with moderate success but very positive reviews. "Marcus, how do you feel about being a published author?" "Strange, but proud. It's surreal to see our story printed in a book." "And do you think we managed to convey the messages we wanted?" "I think so, especially about how small acts of kindness can have enormous consequences." The book opened new opportunities for Marcus. He began receiving invitations to give lectures in other cities, and several people contacted him sharing similar stories of how unexpected help had changed their lives. "Elizabeth, I never imagined our story could have this kind of impact." "Why didn't you imagine it?" "Because to me it was always just normal life, problems that came up and solutions we found." "That's exactly what makes the story special. You didn't do anything extraordinary, you just consistently did the right things." Marcus understood that the apparent normality of their choices was precisely what made them inspiring to other people. When Hope turned 2, Marcus and Elizabeth began discussing the possibility of having more children. "How do you feel about having more babies?" asked Elizabeth. "Positive, but also realistic about how much it would change our routines." "Change how?" "Less time for work, less flexibility to travel, more financial responsibilities." Elizabeth appreciated that Marcus always considered the practical implications of important decisions. "And do you think it's worth it?" "I do. Hope needs siblings, and we have enough love for more children." "Then let's try." Elizabeth became pregnant again a few months later. This time, the pregnancy was more challenging, but the result was another healthy baby, a boy they named Philip. "Now our family is complete," said Marcus, holding his son in his arms. "Are you sure?" "I am. 4 people is the perfect number for our family. Elizabeth agreed. With 2 young children, Marcus caring for Rachel, and the businesses thriving, their lives were full but balanced. The shop continued to grow and became a regional benchmark in automotive maintenance. Marcus developed training programs for other mechanics, expanding his impact beyond the boundaries of his own company. "Marcus," said Elizabeth, "you've become a leader in the industry." "How so?" "Other business owners come here to learn your methods. You influence business practices throughout the region." Marcus had never thought of himself as an industry leader, but Elizabeth was right. "It's strange to think we started with a small shop and got to this." "It's not strange. It's natural. When you do excellent work, people notice and want to learn." Marcus took pride in the professional recognition, but remained focused on maintaining the values that had led to his success. When Philip turned 1, Marcus received a proposal that made him reflect deeply on the future. "Elizabeth, I received an invitation to be a consultant for a national chain of auto shops." "What kind of consulting?" "They want me to develop service standards and training to be applied in hundreds of shops across the country." "That's an incredible opportunity." "It is, but it would also mean traveling a lot and having less time with the family." Elizabeth understood Marcus's dilemma. "What is your heart telling you?" "That it's professionally tempting but not worth the personal sacrifice." "Then you already have your answer." Marcus smiled. Elizabeth always helped him find clarity when he was uncertain. "You don't think I'm wasting an opportunity?" "I think you're making choices consistent with your values, and that is never a waste." Marcus declined the consulting proposal, but negotiated an agreement to develop training materials that could be used remotely. "This way I can contribute to the industry without sacrificing family time," he explained to Elizabeth. "Perfect. You found a middle ground that meets your professional and personal needs." This experience confirmed for Marcus that he had found true balance between ambition and personal priorities. As the children grew, Marcus and Elizabeth began to discuss how to teach important values to Hope and Philip. "How can we make sure they understand the value of honest work?" asked Marcus. "By letting them gradually participate in the shop's activities, as their age allows." "And how do we teach generosity?" "Through example. They will learn by seeing how we treat people." Marcus agreed that education by example was more effective than education by words alone. "Elizabeth, sometimes I worry they'll grow up thinking success is easy, since our family is doing well now." "Why that concern?" "Because I learned important values precisely because I had to fight for everything. If they never face hardship, how will they value what they have?" Elizabeth understood Marcus's concern. "We can create age-appropriate challenges for them. Household responsibilities, volunteer work, projects that require effort and dedication." "Do you think that works?" "I think children raised with love, clear boundaries, and opportunities to contribute become responsible adults." Marcus was reassured by the balanced approach Elizabeth proposed for their children's education. When Hope turned 4, she asked a question that surprised her parents. "Daddy, why did Mommy come to live with us?" Marcus and Elizabeth exchanged a look, realizing it was time to start telling the family story to the children. "Because Daddy saved Mommy when they were young, and then they fell in love," Elizabeth answered simply. "Saved how?" "Daddy helped Mommy when she was hurt and scared." Hope processed this information with the seriousness of a child. "And now you take care of each other?" "Exactly," said Marcus. "In a family, everyone takes care of each other." The conversation made Marcus reflect on how to explain complex concepts appropriately to young children. "Elizabeth, how will we tell the full story when they get older?" "Gradually, as they are ready to understand each part." "Don't you think the story of the accident might scare them?" "It might. But it can also teach them about courage and how to help other people." Marcus agreed that their family story contained valuable lessons the children should know at the appropriate age. Around this time, Rachel made an unexpected announcement that delighted the whole family. "Marcus, Elizabeth, I need to tell you something." "Go ahead," said Marcus. "I've met someone special, a man who works at the physical therapy clinic. Marcus was surprised and happy at the same time. Really? Tell us more about him. He's a physical therapist, 38 years old, never been married, and he doesn't mind my disability. Elizabeth was moved. How did you two meet? He started treating me 6 months ago. At first it was just professional, but gradually we developed a friendship that turned into something more. Marcus was momentarily concerned with practical matters. Rachel, are you sure he's interested in you as a person, not just as a patient? I'm sure, Marcus. He asks me out outside of the clinic context, introduced me to his family, treats me like a normal woman. Elizabeth held Rachel's hand. We're very happy for you. When can we officially meet him? How about Sunday? I can invite him for lunch here. Marcus felt emotional seeing Rachel happy and in love. For years he had worried she would never find someone who saw beyond her disability. Of course you can. We want to meet this special man. Rachel's boyfriend, Dr. Daniel, made an excellent impression on Marcus and Elizabeth. He was kind, respectful, and clearly in love with Rachel. Doctor, Daniel, said Marcus during lunch, what are your intentions with my sister? Marcus, protested Rachel. It's okay, said Daniel. It's a fair question. My intentions are serious. I'm in love with Rachel, and I want to build a life with her. And how do you view her physical limitations? I don't see limitations. I see a strong, intelligent, funny woman who has some specific needs I can help meet. Marcus was impressed with the maturity of Daniel's answer. Elizabeth, he whispered, I think he's perfect for her. I think so too, whispered Elizabeth back. Rachel's relationship progressed quickly. Daniel proposed to her 6 months later, and Marcus felt a mix of joy and melancholy. Marcus, are you happy about my engagement? Asked Rachel. Very happy, but also a little sad. Sad why? Because you've been my life companion for so long that it's strange to imagine you having your own family. Rachel held her brother's hands. Marcus, I will always be your sister. Or, marriage doesn't change that. I know. It's just an emotional adjustment. Elizabeth watched the conversation between the siblings with understanding. She knew Marcus needed to process the change in the family dynamic that had been constant for decades. Marcus, she said later, how are you really feeling about Rachel's marriage? Genuinely happy for her, and proud that she found someone who values her. But also nostalgic. Since I was 17, taking care of Rachel has been my main responsibility. Now she doesn't need me in the same way anymore. Elizabeth understood. Marcus, you haven't lost a responsibility. You have successfully fulfilled a responsibility. There's a huge difference. How so? You raised a strong, independent woman, capable of loving and being loved. That was always the goal, wasn't it? Marcus reflected on this and realized Elizabeth was right. You're right. The success of my raising Rachel is precisely that she doesn't need me anymore. Exactly. And now you can have a normal sibling relationship with her, without the weight of parental responsibility. Marcus felt better with this perspective. Elizabeth always managed to reframe situations in a way that highlighted positive aspects. Rachel's wedding was a beautiful celebration. Marcus walked her down the aisle with tears in his eyes, proud of the extraordinary woman his little sister had become. Rachel, he said before handing her over to Daniel, thank you for being the best sister a man could have. Thank you for being the best brother and father a woman could have, she replied, also emotional. After the wedding, Rachel moved into the house Daniel had bought near the clinic where they worked together. Marcus found the house strangely quiet in the first days. Elizabeth, it's strange Rachel not being here anymore. It's normal to feel that way. You lived together for over 20 years. It's not that I'm not happy for her, it's just different. Marcus, what if we used this phase to rediscover our life as a couple? How so? We had little time to be just husband and wife. We were always husband, wife, and Rachel's caregivers. Marcus hadn't thought of that, but Elizabeth was right. Do you feel we divided our attention too much? I don't feel it was a problem, but now we have an opportunity to deepen our intimacy in a different way. Marcus liked Elizabeth's perspective. Instead of seeing the change as a loss, They could see it as an opportunity for growth in their relationship. With more privacy and time, Marcus and Elizabeth truly deepened their connection. They started having romantic dinners again, long conversations after the children went to sleep, and weekend trips to special places. Elizabeth, I feel like we're dating again. In a sense, we are. We're rediscovering who we are as a couple now that we're no longer responsible for an adult sister. And are you enjoying this rediscovery? Very much. I'm in love with you in an even deeper way. Marcus smiled. Me too. It's like we have layers to our relationship we hadn't fully explored. The rediscovery phase of their marriage was interrupted in a positive way when Elizabeth got pregnant again, this time with twins. Twins? Exclaimed Marcus upon seeing the ultrasound. Twins, confirmed Elizabeth. A boy and a girl. Marcus was simultaneously euphoric and worried. 4 kids is going to be a lot of work. It will, but also a lot of joy. The house will need more renovations. We'll renovate. We can afford it. Marcus gradually got used to the idea of having a large family. Elizabeth kept the pregnancy healthy even though it was twins, and the babies were born without complications. Marcus, said Elizabeth at the hospital, our family is truly complete now. Definitely, he agreed, holding both babies. 4 kids is the absolute limit I can imagine. The twins, Anna and Charles, brought a completely new dynamic to the house. Marcus found he could be a father to 4 small children better than he had imagined. Elizabeth, how are you handling 4 kids? Better than I expected. I think the experience with the first 2 prepared me for the challenges. And work? Are you managing to balance it? I'm working fewer hours but more efficiently, and you are being an excellent partner. Marcus felt proud of the recognition. He had made an effort to share parenting responsibilities equally. With 4 small children, the shop gained even greater importance as a source of financial stability for the family. Marcus hired a competent manager to take on more operational responsibilities, freeing up time for him to dedicate to the children. Marcus, said Elizabeth, don't you feel you're stepping back too much from the shop? A little, but I prefer to be more present in the lives of our young children. The shop can run without me for a few hours a day. The children can't. Elizabeth admired Marcus's priorities. He had learned to balance all his responsibilities without sacrificing any completely. When the twins turned 2, Marcus and Elizabeth took a general assessment of their lives. Elizabeth, if you could change anything about the last 10 years, what would you change? Honestly, nothing. Every challenge taught us something important. Even the difficult moments? Especially the difficult moments. They were what strengthened us as a couple and as individuals. Marcus agreed. The difficulties had been opportunities for growth in disguise. And you, Marcus, would you change anything? Perhaps I would have acted with less fear in the beginning, but I understand that fear was natural given the circumstances. Fear protected you from hasty decisions. I don't see it as something negative. Marcus reflected on that. Elizabeth always managed to find positive aspects even in his past insecurities. Elizabeth, what do you think is the most important lesson we learned together? That true love isn't just a feeling, it's consistent action over time. How so? Love is you saving a stranger on the road. Love is me spending 17 years looking for you. Love is us building a life together based on mutual respect and shared goals. Marcus understood that Elizabeth had articulated something fundamental about the nature of their relationship. And what lesson do you think I learned? That you deserve to be happy. That caring for other people doesn't mean sacrificing your own joy. Marcus smiled. Elizabeth was right. For a long time he had confused responsibility with self-sacrifice. Thank you for teaching me that difference. Thank you for being the kind of man worth searching for 17 years. They kissed there, in the kitchen of their home, surrounded by their children's toys and the sounds of a happy family, knowing they had built exactly the life they both had always wanted, even when they didn't know how to articulate those desires. End of story. And so, dear listener, what did you think of this story of love, overcoming, and second chances? Do you believe Marcus made the right decisions throughout his journey? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most, And if you've ever experienced a situation where a small act of kindness changed your life forever, your opinion is very important to us. Don't forget to leave your like if the story touched your heart, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories like this one. Thank you very much for your company until the end.